morning, everybody. Welcome again to today's Modern Workplace Summit. If you'd like to join us in social media, feel free to reach us at Twitter at RedlevelIT using the hashtag Modern Workplace Summit. We would love to hear your feedback and get your ideas for next year's session. One note from a housekeeping perspective, we would love to answer your questions. Please ask them through the Q&A panel. Now, a quick lay of the land for today. We have our keynote panel discussion, real-world case studies of modern workplace evolution with Village Green, Raker Roberta's, and the Trustees of Reservations right now. Then we will take a quick 30-minute break for lunch, and we will jump on a separate Teams live event for our afternoon sessions. So feel free to come back and join us for Reality of a Virtual Desktop, how Zero Trust Security Architecture is essential, and how modern work collaboration and app development can strengthen your digital transformation strategy. Then we'll be rounding off the show at 3:50 with our closing remarks. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce today's panel moderator. David King is the Chief Executive Officer of Redlevel, a Novi-based IT services and consulting firm serving clients throughout Michigan. David founded Redlevel in 2004, having identified a pronounced market lead for a firm capable of providing enterprise-grade IT services and solutions to small and mid-sized companies. Under his leadership, the company has expanded to over 50 staff and has been the recipient of honors and awards bestowed by leading business publications, technology partners, and community organization. David is going to be heading up today's panel and helping us through all of our conversations. Now, I would like to introduce our keynote panelists for our Modern Workplace Evolution panel. We have three fabulous speakers from around the Metro Detroit and Michigan region. First up, we have Daniel Melton, who's the Associate Vice President of Technology for Village Green. Daniel started his career with Village Green over 13 years ago as an on-site leasing agent, taking prospect tours through apartments to secure leases. He has a passion for innovation and technology and sharpened his tools while looking at the next opportunity in the multifamily space. In 2010, Daniel took on a role as a regional marketing director, traveling the country assisting with new market developments and lease-up projects. He later took over a role in the training department where he oversaw the sales and marketing training program, assisting employees in their career growth at Village Green. Data and technology were used by Daniel for enhancing their training structure. Seeing the success in technology in the training department, Daniel was asked to expand that footprint and create a new business analytics department. With the synergies between data, IT managed platforms, digital development, and the needs that all three areas filled, Daniel was given the keys to take over all of the technology departments in January of 2020. This now encompasses our IT team, business analytics, and digital strategy. Technology is Daniel's passion, and his foresight sees Village Green continuing to leverage the talent under the many employees along with the valued strategic partners to push the limits on the multifamily apartment housing industry. A little bit about Village Green, where Daniel is from. Village Green was originally founded in 1919. The company has evolved from building single-family homes into one of the nation's largest privately held apartment companies. Village Green Management Company and the Village Green Apartment brand was established in 1966 as a separate division exclusively for developing, building, and managing apartment communities. In the late 1970s, Village Green pushed innovations in business, marketing, technology, and design that over the course of nearly 4 decades transformed the company into a national apartment industry leader. Village Green created a hospitality orientation based on exceptional customer service with multiple brands, operating companies, and the award-winning University of Village Green Associate Training Program. In 2011, Compatriot Capital, a division of Salmons Enterprises, became owners in Village Green. Today, the company is under the stewardship of a seasoned team who continue to confidently guide and inspire a forward-thinking philosophy and customer-centric culture comprised of 1,300 associates who manage over 40,000 apartment units throughout the United States. That is a lot of units. Congratulations to Village Green. Next up, we have Ken Chasen, Managing Director, Digital Technology for the Trustees of Reservations. Ken joined the nonprofit Trustees of Reservations as the Managing Director of Digital Technology in April of 2020. In Ken's career, he's led technology teams at iconic brands such as Staples, Reebok, and Dunkin' brands, leading teams to implement trailblazing new solutions to enhance the guest and employee experience. He is also on the board of directors for the nonprofit community Work Services. A little bit about the Trustees. Founded in 1891, the Trustees of Reservations enjoy and care for more than 120 special places, 27,000 acres, and 120 miles of coastline in Massachusetts. The Trustees works to protect these properties, providing care of our reservations, building creative new programs to engage people, and sharing our expertise with neighbors and partners across the state. The centerpiece of the Trustees' mission is protecting places of ecological, scenic, and historic importance. We find Massachusetts' most potential endangered iconic landscapes and precious cultural relics and allocate land stewardship resources and expertise to maintain their integrity long into the future. Over 2 million people annually visit our museums, beaches, historic homes, summer day camps, campgrounds, inns, farms, and so much more. Next up, we have Jim Winchell, Information Systems Team Leader for Raker Roberta's Young Plants. Jim is currently the Information Systems Team Leader at Raker Roberta's Young Plants in Litchfield, Michigan. He has an Associate's of Applied Science and Electronics Engineering Technology from Jackson College and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Kennedy Western University. Jim has been with Raker Roberta's for 15 years and has held various positions in a technical capacity for the past 29 years. He is married to his beautiful wife Karen of 25 years with one son, Christopher, who just turned 24. He enjoys watching college football and is an avid Detroit Tigers fan. He also enjoys creating and engraving items with his lasers. A little bit about Raker Roberta's Young Plants. They are the leading wholesaler of custom-grown plugs and liners in North America. Through both seed and vegetative propagation, Raker Roberta supplies over 3,000 plant varieties to greenhouses and nurseries around the planet. In addition, Raker Roberta's continuously research and evaluate new and existing plant varieties. Our yearly trials provide more than 4 acres of over 3,000 plant varieties in 3 trial categories: row, hanging basket, and container. Feel free to visit them during the summer to experience their world-renowned trials. Now, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to David to start off our panel.
All right. First off, welcome everybody, and thank you for sharing your morning with us and your afternoon as we host Redlevel's signature event, the Modern Workplace Summit. Again, another thanks to our phenomenal marketing team and our practice areas in Redlevel that have put a lot of time and effort to bring this together. And another thank you to our panelists as well, because you guys are really here to share the story. I think today's going to be awesome because we are going to share some phenomenal stories about these 3 gentlemen and the businesses that they have been leading, especially over the past 18 months or so. So it's been a phenomenal journey. We have a lot of great stories to share, a lot of great content this afternoon. So please stay tuned throughout the day. We're so excited that you could join us today for this. And we're just going to get started with our panelists. So with that, really, we start the Modern Workplace Summit about digital transformation. One of Redlevel's core tenets is we help companies experience a journey, essentially a follow along a roadmap of really where their business is going. So we work with them alongside partnership to bring them from point A to point B. And a lot of times we're helping them modernize not only their infrastructure, but their business process, their reporting, their software, and there's just so many pieces in between. And I think that's why today's panelists are very unique, a very diverse group that we're going to share some really resonating stories that I think will stick with you and really share their experiences along the way. So I'm really excited to have Ken, Jim, and Dan with us today. And as we talk about digital transformation, we can kind of go with like a textbook definition about being more convenient for the customers, being able to scale, being more responsive to the needs. But Ken, how do you and how do the trustees define digital transformation?
The focus is always on the guest, on the visitor, on the member. We're a membership-based organization. We define it as offering better, more modern solutions to our guests whenever they come to visit our properties. By offering that, as an organization, we become better equipped ourselves. Before we embarked on this journey a couple of years ago, while we have 2 million visitors to our properties, we didn't really know a lot about them. How many people were coming on which day, which events they were going to. We had no analytical capabilities. So it really impacted our profitability, our earnings, our offerings to guests. It really, the digital transformation takes us into a new era, but it continues to open our eyes about our organization and our guests and our members in the whole organization. Some people might look at it as we've always done it that way, but once the light of day shines upon new learnings every day, it really opens our eyes to more opportunities for the whole organization.
And we've certainly had a lot of opportunity to experience change over the last 18 months. So Jim, how about you? How do you define, and how does Raker define digital transformation? Jim, you're on mute, if you can hear me.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, Rakers has always used technology as one of the tools in their tool belt to succeed in our industry. A lot of our people that we deal with are, they're in rural areas. They may not have stable internet connections. They may not even use technology to speak of. But we try and use what we have at our disposal to better those customers that we work with. There's different ways that we do that, whether it's through our sales force or through our B2B transactions that we do with our larger broker offices. We really just consider ourselves to be forward thinking and a leader in our industry, and really embrace technology in any way we can.
All right. Dan, how about you? We talked about this, and you guys were kind of already have a pretty strong definition of what you were working on, but how would you define this?
Well, looking at modern solutions, our intent is always to be proactive and always to be nimble when it comes to any part of technology, whether it's, a digital transformation, cloud-based systems that we're using, security measures that we have in place. Like in the intro, you probably heard, we're multifamily housing operators, and we oversee, anywhere from 30 to 40,000 units, depending on the day of the week. So we have not only our clients as an ownership base, but we also have our customers out there as residents living in these apartment communities. So our idea of using this kind of a modern solution digital transformation is not just towards one group of people, it's for our owners to get the best bang for our buck, for our residents out there living at our properties to ensure that they've got the best ease of use, secure use with our online application process, our portals, payment systems, and then of course for our associates to ensure that we've got the best tools to help them do the best possible job that they can out there in the field.
Thank you. And Ken, what started really that path towards the digital transformation for the trustees? I noticed that you came on board about a month after the pandemic started. So I can only imagine your story about walking into a brand new company, brand new organization, and then leading this digital transformation. Can you kind of share where you were with that journey and kind of where we're at now? You're also on mute.
It's been a wild ride. I actually changed jobs on the day of the shutdown. So I wasn't able to even tell my old staff that I wasn't going to be working at that company anymore. And I've never really been in our offices at our new job, and we're now going on 18 months here. So it's been very different, very unique in that regard. The trustees got started. I think what initially started the conversation is that our CRM platform had reached a point where it was too old. It was not supported. It was on hosted servers in a closet at our company, and it was like, we need to figure out what we're going to do with this because the vendor's not going to support it anymore. That's what prompted the very first conversation. But that then led into things like, we have a lot of systems that we don't like that aren't functional. So rather than just go try to fix a CRM, why don't we take a step back and look at the whole ecosystem and where are our priorities? That then led to conversations about, this is going to cost some funds. Where are we going to get the funds from? That involved board level conversations, and approximately 3 to 4 years ago, the board got involved, created a tech task force team of say 10 to 15 members, all that had technology background, and said, this is where we need to focus, and this is where we don't need to focus right now. So phase one is going to be guest facing, guest processing functionality, tickets, point of sale, websites, digital management of images, and a CRM eventually. So it started that way, and as part of that initiative, it was, we don't have the right people in place to implement this initiative. So that's where I showed up, and other people in our marketing and web development groups also started showing up. And we started almost immediately to break down the silos of our organization. Groups that had never talked to each other before, we're now talking to each other and creating collaboration so that we have embedded solutions that touch all of the aspects of our organization. Historically, been around for 130 years, every property was allowed to go pick whatever system they wanted, whatever process they wanted, which creates a nightmare for somebody centrally trying to create a consolidated financials report to banks or board members, things like that. So besides just systems, it was also people and process that we needed to involve also.
Yeah. I can see that would be quite an overwhelming task to walk into on your first day.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Dan, how about you? What started that? I know that you guys have done quite a bit in your automation and such. But so I don't know if necessarily the COVID kind of induced that, but I'm sure it had some additional impact. But do you recall how would you say Village Green kind of really got into that mindset and really started moving forward?
Well, similar to Ken, back January 2020, I shifted from overseeing business intelligence and the synergies with IT and digital all align. I shuffled into a new role overseeing the entire IT department That was January 2020. So I sat down with our director of IT, and we had this roadmap for next 2 to 3 years. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Who do we need on the team? And I threw this quote out there when we did a pre-meeting the other day, and I love this quote. It's a Mike Tyson quote. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. So we sat down and we had this great plan. We knew 2-3 years out, we're going to migrate to the cloud. We're going to use SharePoint to host all of our intranet. We're going to take everything on, from our on-prem servers, go to the cloud. We're going to roll out these new collaboration portals. We're going to do a new website transfer. And we're going to introduce everybody to Teams, and we're, retiring Skype. We've got this plan drafted. Oh, and on top of that, we want to transfer from our old phone systems to soft phone technology using our VoIP preferred provider. So we had this mapping laid out, and we thought, hey, we're being real proactive. This is the next couple of years for us, and we were excited. And then all of a sudden, bam, we got punched in the face, and we had to react real quick. And some of the things that we were looking at that were 2 to possibly 3 years out from a deployment standpoint. We had forced adoption. So similar to what we're doing right now, we're on a Teams meeting. We're prior to the pandemic, it was normal business practice to meet in a conference room and sit down face to face, shake hands. And people really didn't want to adopt this platform of meeting through, this virtual conferencing. Obviously, we were forced into this. So we shifted gears, and right away we had to start building out, tech talk tips around how to use Teams and how to adopt this, this, I guess, best practice going forward. It was forced adoption. And to us, that was one of the byproducts of the pandemic, is things that we had lined up for the next 2 to 3 years now became the next 2 to 3 weeks. And it helped us in some other things that we'll talk about a little later on more adoption for, projects and plans that we had rolled out. But that was, to go back to the comment, David, is we had a plan, and we thought we're forward thinking, we're going to be nimble, and we have this idea of what we want to be and how we're going to do it and who's going to be at the table. And with the pandemic hitting, everything got forced a lot faster. And in many of my conversations with others in this space, it's the same thing. We were forced into doing something, maybe not as comfortable with it, but now you look at the results, and 3 years out, all happened within about 2-3 weeks.
If anything, it sure was a catalyst to bring those that were not ready to the forefront. So even Jim, I know that you guys have been one of the leading innovators in your space nationally. How did you guys get started on this? Because it certainly wasn't overnight.
No, definitely not. As I mentioned before, we've always embraced technology. Family-owned company, started in '78. The owners were very interested in what technology could do for them. And grow their business. So we've always had a significant investment in technology year over year. Like all other industries, we've gone through our ups and downs. And 2017, we really started to see a shift. We had to change how we were doing business day to day to survive. And in 2017, we partnered with Roberta's Unique Gardens in just north of Indianapolis. We grew a lot of product for them. They do a lot of their sales through QVC. So, people out there may have seen them on QVC. We partnered together and said, hey, we need to make some changes. And, through those changes, we had to go through some restructuring. We lost some people just due to normal attrition, but, we had to make some tough decisions as well. And, from an IT standpoint, we went from having 5 people in our IT to having 2. And we were used to doing everything ourselves internally. We hadn't really looked at cloud-based infrastructure at all. But 2017 came around, and we just, we had to have those tough conversations. Where do we want to grow the business? Where do we want to focus? And how are we going to get there? So we did that, and that's really when our transformation started. We partnered with Redlevel on a number of projects. We've got we had Exchange server on premise. We have SQL Server. We have a VMware environment, and just keeping up with those technologies is a full-time job in itself. And we decided as a company that we just didn't want to be the experts in that. We needed to be the experts in what we do best, and that's further developing our ERP system that we've completely developed in-house, and focus on those things that keep us competitive in our market. So we started that, like Dan mentioned. We went from an on-premise phone system to GoToConnect. We had that transition to go through. We've partnered with Redlevel on our VMware. Anything VMware, we go to Redlevel for, and that way, for the two people, myself included, that's in that department, we strictly focus on maintaining our network for our 75 to 80 plus users during our year-round time. We peak about 250 users during our peak shipping season. So we make sure that everybody has what they need to do their job, and then in our off season, if you will, we focus on those development jobs to improve our systems and get the information out to our customers the best way that we can.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Dan, I really liked your quote from Mike Tyson. I may even borrow and steal that. So it is really good. And that really kind of brings up the next question is, you had all of those great plans that you had put together, and then COVID, as a lot of us say, COVID changed everything. Mm-hmm. Were you able to use those plans and kind of go forward, or was it the same plans and you just had to step on the accelerator, or did you have to retool and rethink everything because of the impact that COVID now had on Village Green?
Yeah, so we first we paused the plan and said we've got to focus on other areas. Two areas. One was inventory management. So we went from again, property management. We've got apartment communities throughout the country on staff in the office now being forced to work from home. They can't bring a tower and a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse and speakers, unplug it all and carry it home with them. We are worried about damaging and just the mess that could create. So we shifted right away when this happened, right when we got punched in the face, to how do we deploy the inventory, laptops or all-in-one assets to the field so that they can work from home. It doesn't stop any business continuity. So that was our first priority. And within about 2 weeks, we had deployed almost 40, we call them loaner devices, out there to the field so that our on-site staff was able to go home, work from home office, and still continue business. And at the time, we didn't know how long this was going to take. We didn't know, when they were coming back in. So it was just managing inventory a little bit different. Luckily, we had the assets on hand to do this. They were all set aside for corporate use, and we were going to exchange out computers throughout the year. We had them waiting. We redeployed them out to the field. Once we had that piece done, our next step was to make sure that any of the automated forms that we need to fill out, associate wellness forms, we built those in-house. And I believe Jim did the same thing using, we used Microsoft Flow, Power Automate, and Power Apps to build out our forms to fill out those surveys. So that was step 2. And then after that, we kind of sat there and looked at each other and said, okay, let's go back to the plan. It forced us to dig into Teams, using Teams as our platform. So, the comment you made, David, did it shift? Did we change, or was it accelerated? In this case, everything that we had planned we accelerated, and it had to move a lot faster than what we originally had set aside for deployment. And then everything kind of came along with it. But that first piece of the puzzle was making sure there was a level of comfort for this virtual meeting, not only for internal associates to have meetings and see faces and smile at each other, but it was also important for our clients, our supplier partners, that we had access to not stop business, but still meet with them through a platform where we're distancing, but we can still see faces. We felt like that was important for the businesses to see a friendly face on the other side.
Ken, you really walked into the world there with COVID starting a brand new company, and you also shared earlier with us prior to the call or prior to the summit today that there was a lot of pen and paper at the Trustees, and you guys really had to build a plan. So I'm not sure if you were on a journey and kind of had some vision, but you really had to step on the gas, I imagine, as soon as you walked in the door. Would you agree with that, or how would you describe that?
Absolutely. We had a lot of conversations, but no action on a few areas for a few years. For example, we had been talking with a variety of software vendors that do ticketing. So when you want to come to an event, you got to buy a ticket online, etc. But we've been talking to them for 2 years without making a decision as to which one we were going to buy. We had talked about having an e-commerce online retail store for years, but our platform didn't support it. We had talked about things like Teams, like Dan just mentioned, and nobody wanted to pull the trigger. I'm not going to use this unless somebody holds a gun to my head, etc. And what COVID did for us was expedite everything. The other thing we talked about was we didn't think our customers would want to do online membership sign up. It's all going to be pen and paper, US mail, somebody's got to pick up the mail, etc. We don't want to go that way. Well, within the span of about 60 days, we were able to implement a new ticketing system, implement a new retail system, shift everybody to online membership, and Teams became part of the oxygen for every single employee who couldn't go meet face-to-face with anybody anymore. So if you were hesitant about it, you better get over that really fast, because tomorrow's meeting with your boss is on Teams and you better get used to it. So there was a little bit of a bump in terms of IT support, but as our CFO mentioned just last week at our company meeting, all those people that were hesitant about that a year and a half ago, you just don't even think about it now. You're on Teams all day long with somebody all the time. And I think I've counted about 6 different virtual audio, video platforms, whether it be Teams or Zoom or WebEx or Google Meet or something. Everybody just sort of goes with the flow now and clicks on the link and moves along with it. So change came rapidly, but it provided a lot of benefits to us in a lot of different areas.
Absolutely, and it's good. And as leaders, that's part of the deal, is embracing that culture and kind of leading by example. And it sounds like you definitely did that, going from the pen and paper to increasing all of your sales for the year, new memberships, and a whole new system. So hats off to you for that. Oh. Jim, you mentioned in 2017 is really when you felt like you guys got started on it. How did COVID change your plans? Did it step on the gas, or did you guys have to retool things based on? I imagine a lot of your workforce is in person, so just not only cultural but technological.
Yeah, COVID for us, it was certainly a major speed bump, but as a wholesale grower of vegetable plants or vegetable starters, if you will, we were deemed as a necessary business. So we had to stay open. It wasn't so much a technology hurdle for us, but now you're having to put up screens, and you've got all the masking requirements, and trying to keep our workforce safe through something that was evolving each and every day. That was probably the biggest challenge for us. we were already underway with converting from a traditional volume license system with our Office subscriptions and everything, converting that over to Office 365. We were already paying those dollars each year, but there's just so much more that's offered within the Office 365 package that we could take advantage of. And Teams is a huge one for us. Just like Ken and Dan had mentioned, we don't even think about it anymore. We're our typical day, because it was a family business, still has that family atmosphere. It was nothing to crowd 30 people into a conference room and, hey, let's talk about our production processes, what's going on this week, whether it's quality issues or claims. It was nothing to do that. And as soon as COVID hit, bam, we can't do that anymore. Again, we were using Teams, Zoom, anything that we can to, keep people in touch and not interrupt the continuity of the business. So, yep.
Surely adapt and overcome, it sounds like.
Yep, definitely.
Right. Dan, we've been 18 months into this pandemic. You guys have done a lot in that time. How would you say your organization's doing now with all of this digital transformation, the new technology? How do you grade yourself in the organization for its embrace, its change, even the cultural changes?
To give ourselves a grade, of course, I'm going to say it was A+. Everybody did such a great job. But in all reality, we still don't really know. We're trying to predict how's it going to go, what's next year going to look like, what's next week going to look like. I'm extremely proud of not only the IT division, but the team that I work with, digital IT and BA, on what we were able to provide during this, I'm going to call it the chaos of the pandemic. But I'm also really proud of our teams out there in the field. The forced adoption to some of these things. It was uncomfortable. There's friction there, and people don't want to do it. I know Ken said until the gun is to the head, and unfortunately that happened. There was no choice. We had to do it. There were some that pushed back really hard, didn't want to do it, weren't comfortable. They ended up figuring out, hey, this is actually, there's some benefits, there's value to this. And I know other organizations out there probably saw the same thing. The savings in cost from having to fly and travel around the country was a big bonus. But to look at where we're at today compared to where we're at the beginning of the pandemic and how we've adopted some of this, it gave us opportunities. And kind of going back on your last question is, what else on the roadmap came up that we were able to deploy. We migrated from our physical office phones, our Mitel phones in the office, and we had to make a decision. Are we going to buy new phones, new Polycoms to work with our current AT&T provider, or do we make the move? And do we just say, no more phones, let's go soft phone technology? Now that we have people working from home using cell phones with an application like Teams, or using their computer on Teams, maybe this is our window of opportunity to push this out too. So we gave it some thought and walk through the process, how long it's going to take us to do it. But we did all the phone migrations, and happy to say that now, as another byproduct of this, we're fully on soft phone technology for our corporate and regional users. And I think it happened as a byproduct of the pandemic and a byproduct of forced adoption with Teams. It was an easy process to understand because we related everything back to the forced adoption with Teams. Now it's just another piece of the puzzle. It's going to make your lives easier. Because we had the physical phones in the office, nobody's allowed to go there. So let's come up with a solution. Let's put the phone on your computer. So we had, some great partnerships there. And again, to kind of look back and how are we doing? How do we grade ourselves now? I made the comment, not only does the IT department, we want to be nimble, but our site staffs and our teams out there in the field have also done an incredible job of being nimble and just taking it day by day. What's next? And, trusting that we've got the right people in the right positions to provide the best tools. So that's if you're asking for a grade, I'm going to say A+. I'm proud.
Well, that's awesome to hear, because I know that a lot of work went into that, a lot of strategy, a lot of
Yeah.
planning. So those are certainly not overnight objectives.
Yeah.
Ken, you had again, I mentioned the struggle that you had just coming on board, but you guys have come a long way in the last 18 months. How would you say that the organization has been changed, the culture has been changed, and how would you grade yourselves of the last journey, 18-month journey?
Yeah, I mean, in so many areas, it was unexpected, but most of them were in a very much a good way. So when COVID hit and the first 60 days of the shutdown, people wanted to get outside. So our membership, which typically grew at 1 to 2% annually, grew 45% the first year. And then it's growing 25% so far this year on top of that 45%. So this huge bump in membership has a cascading effect through the whole organization. How do you onboard members, things like that. So our whole US mail base, when no one can leave the house, who can handle the US mail? So we outsourced a lot of our US mail handling to a mail processing house. When we had, again, one of those conversations we never pulled the trigger on, we did that very quickly, and that's been a godsend for us in terms of quicker fulfillment. Because we had limited attendance requirements due to COVID, we needed tickets and capacity limits for all of our events. Acme Ticketing allowed us to do that, very flexible through the whole thing. Because we needed to sell products online, not as much in person, but sort of a blended retail solution, we needed to go find a solution for that. So we implemented that. As Dan mentioned, we moved to Teams-based soft phones also and saved thousands of dollars in networking costs. With all of this change going on, we had how do we know how we're doing? Historically, we had used Microsoft Access and Excel, personal reports. We migrated everything to a Power BI-based analytics platform. Did we get any pushback? Oh yeah, we got a lot of pushback. A lot of change creates a lot of pushback from the guests, from our employees, etc. Comments like, this is my beach and I can show up to my beach whenever I want to show up to my beach. That was a lot of the first year. So how did we measure things? We didn't have a customer service platform last year, but we had comments like we were 5,000 to 8,000 backed up emails in customer service from the summer that lasted all the way through to November, December, just getting caught up. This year, having a year under our belts and a help desk system in place that manages tickets, we've had a maximum of 1,700 tickets, and we're now, right now, at 500 flat tickets. So that's a 90% plus reduction in the number of customer service complaints, comments, etc. So we've been able to, it's almost like what hasn't changed, and what's gotten worse. And back to that favorite IT phrase recently has been nimble, the ability to change on the fly. Have we made mistakes? Sure, we made mistakes, but you were nimble enough to change your mind and shift to something else quickly before it became a crisis.
Yeah, that change is so important, and the ability and the adoption from the culture and the rest of the organization. And Jim, how would you grade yourself? Because 18 months into it, you've certainly made progress, but where would you say you're at?
Yeah, I tend to grade myself kind of hard, but I would say for us it's been a B plus. Going into the pandemic, we had several projects that were already underway, but talk about having to reshift your focus overnight. I mean, it was huge. So we took some projects, put them on the back burner. We kind of embraced the opportunity we had in front of us. Just like Ken and Dan had mentioned, soft phones, that was a no-brainer. Did we really like the circumstances that we we had to roll those out. Not really, but we got through it. Everybody's used to using their cell phone. And once they started using that, they're like, man, why didn't we do this a long time ago? And of course we had to think about other things too. Security. We worked on having our firewall upgraded, and we used Redlevel and their support to do that. So we upgraded to a high availability firewall with dual internet connections. We've got that configured so we can load balance, or if one goes down, it automatically switches over to our backup. We did other things like we went from an on-premise backup system using Veeam to more of a hybrid, where now we've got that dual internet connection, we've got the bandwidth at night. Let's back this stuff up to the cloud as well. We've got almost 11 acres underneath a greenhouse. So people look at the facility and they're like, wow, that's quite a structure. Well, we had some pretty heavy storms come through this year, and greenhouses, they're susceptible to weather like any other structure. So if something happens right now, we've got copies of everything in the cloud that we can spin up on a moment's notice and still continue on doing business, even if we're down a greenhouse or two because of damage. We can still carry out those day-to-day tasks. So still work in progress, but yeah, I would say overall a B+.
All right, and that's so true about the change. When you sometimes the old adage is change. When you ask who wants it, everybody wants it, and then when you say who wants to change, you get less of that response. But again, we were all kind of forced to do what we had to do to make those changes. But I appreciate you setting us up for the next question about security, though. Security is no longer an afterthought. It really should have never been an afterthought, but unfortunately, in some areas it has. But as we've all shifted to the cloud, in some way, shape, or form, security is first and foremost in a lot of things. And at Redlevel, it's one of our building blocks of when we talk with clients about what they should be working on and helping them through a roadmap of different areas. But how did you, Dan, how did you start, or how did you embrace security during this last 18 months of your, from a COVID standpoint? What changed that you guys brought in around security? How did you embrace it, and what things have you done in that realm?
Yeah, so we talked before about us having kind of a plan going into 2020. So when I made my shift to oversee the IT department, we had another gentleman on our team, and we split him off, and he was our director of IT, and he's got a background in cybersecurity defense. So we actually created a position for him as fully overseeing all of our cybersecurity innovation and cyber defense. So as we were going through this, intro to 2020, again, he had a plan of what he wanted to do as he fell under that new umbrella. And some of the things that we had originally partnered with our cyber team on was obviously getting everything off the on-premise environment, getting it to the cloud. So we partnered with Redlevel on this as well, but migrating everything that we have in our intranet from on-premise to the cloud, just to ensure that whatever we have that's sitting there in our server room, we used to worry about backups, and we had Veeam set up, and we would worry about the what ifs, and we had a couple different server rooms set up, one in Michigan and one in Chicago, but the goal was to get this all out of that physical inventory into the cloud. So we partnered with him, partnered with Redlevel, and we made that happen in the midst of the pandemic. So it was another byproduct of it. What else can we do right now while we're not physically in the office, and we're just kind of covering and making ourselves feel comfortable about that worry. The other one I brought this up a little bit ago is the deployment of laptops out to the field, because again, we oversee 35, 40,000 units apartment inventory, and we have staff all throughout the country. And with almost 1,200 employees, the ease of being able to go work from home, turn on a personal device, and start working on a personal laptop was second nature to many of our associates in the field, without even the thought that that's not the right thing to do or there's a problem with it. So it became a challenge, but also was something that we had to pinpoint right away, is we have to come up with a solution. So deploying, iPads and computers, whether it's laptops or all-in-one, something that they can bring home so they can use something that is a controlled device, something that's in our inventory management, to make sure it's got the right security softwares deployed, through our CrowdStrike programs. And the reason why, I think people had a hard time with it, and a lot of people in the space are seeing this, is, our employees, they work with a lot of maybe confidential information, and it's so easy for them to pull a report out of an operating system, download it to a desktop, and now it could have information in there. We lose the control and the insights. So that was, a challenge, but also a way that we had to make sure that we buttoned down and, had more, I'm going to say that, kind of big brother oversight. Who's using what? How are you logging in? The use of, Okta as our SSO tool to get into some of our systems, helped us out greatly. We deployed Mimecast back in 2019. That became a great security tool for us from our email, from all of our incoming, outgoing emails. So that it was just a handful of things that we had to, again, adopt real quick, make sure the field, again, 12,000 or 1,200 employees, had an understanding of why we're having to step in and do control, kind of quality control, when they may not, see it as big of a deal, or, to them, it's not a problem. I'm not going to do that, but just having the full understanding that we're doing this for a reason. It's to protect you, our clients, as well as our customers.
I think in the words of one of our practice directors, Jesse, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when
Yeah.
we'll experience that kind of either information breach, if you don't have the right policies and procedures in place. So.
Yeah, and we would, I know you're going to shuffle over to the next person, but we would get the comment all the time of, well, we've never seen that yet. We've never had a breach in data yet. So I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Well, we haven't had it because we are hounding, and we're putting so many different, applying different, tools to prevent it. So the fact that we haven't had it doesn't minimize the fact that it may never happen. It's because we are trying to control it from ever getting out.
Right, 100%. And Jim, I know that security can't be an afterthought. So I'm sure as you're kind of working through just the survivability and operations side of things, you had to consider what you're going to be doing for security. How did you handle the security aspect for Raker?
Yeah, unfortunately, we had our when moment. Back in 2019. We had a ransomware attack, and it got in. Phones are ringing off the hook 5:30 in the morning. Can't log in. That's weird. Everything looks good. Guess we better go to the server room, check things out, hook up some monitors. Oh, great. They're requesting $20,000, and it was a rough day, but fortunately we had systems in place that we were able to recover. We're certainly not going to pay a ransom, and we had those systems in place that were backing up. We were able to roll back to a point in time just before that happened. We were back up, in a few hours. Did it disrupt the environment a little bit? Absolutely. But yeah, from a security standpoint, I can't stress it enough. It's going to happen. It's just the way things are. And we just need to stay on top of that. And it forced us after that incident to really do a top-down analysis of, what are we doing to prevent this? How did it get in? We know how it got in now, and we've put measures in to mitigate that. But certainly, security should be at the forefront of any tech discussion today.
Absolutely, and just getting workers to work from home, as Dan said, you've got all of these folks that have access to the same stuff they had in the office, but without any controls, you're just more vulnerable because you have more opportunity to be vulnerable. So I think that there's a lot to be said in that area. And Ken, I know you're coming in doing a digital transformation and then layer security right on top of that. How did you guys pull all these systems together and then still keep security at the forefront?
Yeah, so we have a small IT staff, 4 people right now. 2 of us focused more on application solutions, 2 of us focused on infrastructure. The director of IT for the infrastructure, he came on board about a year before me, rolled up his sleeves and said, all right, we have to figure out where we're at right now. So he reached out to some of our board members that have a technology background, have run technology companies, et cetera, and said, where do I get started on all of this? They recommended following the NIST framework and do a report card on yourself, an open and honest report card. And there was a lot of red on that report card and maybe a little yellow and maybe a green. If we were lucky, we had a green. And that's been his roadmap as he's followed through from relatively simple things like how do you onboard an employee? How do you offboard an employee? How do we make sure that we've offboarded everybody we should have offboarded? And those types of plumbing things, those collaborations with human resources, those have been key to get things moving in that regard. He showed the report card just the other day. I'd say 70% of it is green now. So definitely heading in the right direction. As everybody else is doing, we're moving to cloud-based systems everywhere. We still have a few on-premise challenges, which are big moves. We've eliminated many of the systems that the properties had gone out and picked. So now we have fewer systems, which are security holes to worry about. We're an Office 365 customer. We launched a new intranet using SharePoint as part of that, and we're using SharePoint for document storage as opposed to in-house servers. As I mentioned, we flipped over to Teams for phones. We implemented phishing tools because many of those security breaches come in via email. Security, as everybody has said, you're never done with it. This is a game of cops and robbers, bad guys, good guys that goes on forever and ever for as long as we've been around as people. Somebody has something and somebody else wants it. Jim, kudos to you to get back up from a ransomware attack in a few hours. That in some cases could be months or years. The ferry service to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket got hit this year in the middle of the summer. And that means all the boats stopped for like weeks, and that was a bad thing. So kudos to you on that.
I think you're right, Jim. Security is a full-time job, and it's a full-time job of everyone in the organization. It's not just the security department or the IT department. It's everybody from the front desk to the back warehouse that have to be involved, and they have to be trained, and they have to be knowledgeable on that. That brings up another area of modern work, which is collaboration. That's really the ability to share information, communicate effectively, and really drive the organization forward through tools. How would you guys, what things have you done around collaboration, and what's been, we talked about Teams is certainly one collaboration tool, but it's certainly not the only one. But what have you done over the last 18 months, and where do you see yourselves going with collaboration and collaboration tools? I'm sorry, Dan, you start with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're also a Microsoft shop, so everything that we're doing, along with Ken and Jim, that we're doing is we, investigate internal tools that we already have. So obvious is, Teams platform from a collaboration standpoint. We have many different departments, internal departments, accounting, people services or HR, training. So we started developing collaboration or Teams pages for document sharing, similar to what we would do in our OneDrives, but document sharing, meetings, scheduling, and from that point we started to just build and build and build. So introducing tools such as OneDrive to our teams, which is another tool that we had a lot of friction with. People did not want to use OneDrive. It was different. It was a change. It was complicated to share files, and how do I give this to external, internal, I got to put a timeline. It was this friction to overcome, but it forced it. So OneDrive is another collaboration tool we're using today, and now people are comfortable with it, and it's great to see. The Teams collab pages and Teams department pages. Planner, Microsoft Planner is another tool that we're using today for just scheduling tasks within interdepartments on who's doing what do the projects look like. So it was a way of for us to look at collaboration tools, but not only that, from an IT standpoint. So when I say over IT, it's my digital team, so web development, business analytics, and then our IT support. Each of them has had an opportunity to collaborate with different departments. From our training department, we used to do all of our training courses through a Polycom system, physical people in a training room sitting next to each other, and we had 4 or 5 of them set up around the country. And it was a travel cost, and it was, paying for lunch as people come in and flying them in and hotels. Now everything is done on Teams. And I don't think that we're going to go back to the old way of doing it. It's sleeker, it's more nimble. It gives us greater opportunities to get more people in class, and you can host classes more often. So that's a collaboration with the training department. Some other collaboration that we've had. I know the comment about Power BI and some of the SQL servers. We actually partnered with the team over at Redlevel and Clay Osborne to build out our SQL database. So we have all of our data piping into our SQL database. So as we're going through the pandemic, we're trying to keep track of, are we performing still, and what do the trends look like? With a national crisis, and you have eviction moratoriums all over the place, and you've got these concerns with delinquency and rent payments. So if the person isn't going to pay their rent, the owner can't pay the mortgage, then what happens? So for us to be able to track this information in real time, collaborate with our financial divisions, and show them, visualize data through Power BI using our SQL databases, housing all and harvesting all this data, it made people more comfortable. It opened up conversations with IT, business intelligence that wasn't there before. So there was a level of trust that was built in those collaborations. So, and again, kind of going back to where I started off is, looking at the partnerships, not only with Redlevel and making sure there's some hand-holding if we needed it, but also, there as an advisory team to help us get to where we need to be. And then also, with Microsoft being our tool of choice, it just gave us these opportunities to shrink the globe a little bit and collaborate on a different level that we just never had before.
Yeah, I can certainly see that Power BI and that real-time analytics and dashboard being really key to be able to see exactly where your tenants are at. Yeah. Because there are certainly federal programs that can assist, and you need that information, real time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Ken, how about you? You mentioned that you guys are kind of team advocates now, and you've tasted every flavor of collaboration, at least the meetings collaboration. But are you using that to the full extent? And what else are you doing to kind of keep the teams together?
Yeah, I mean, the word team, it didn't really exist from a systems perspective at the trustees. We had 120 properties that operated as their own individual teams. And then we had departments at corporate that operated as their team for their goal. One of the things that I think as leaders in IT is what we do is to build systems cut across all of those silos to create the best possible solution. So what my role was is to pull people together first, to get them to talk to each other, to get them to understand the other side of the coin, to get it to work like that. We had a lot of pushback from people like, why do I need to go to this meeting? I don't like that person. Every week? I don't want to go every week. Why do we need to do that? Just different mindsets. But 18 months later, we still have a retail meeting every Wednesday and a ticket meeting every Thursday and an archive meeting every Tuesday. And every single week we come up with some new idea, new initiative that needs collaboration across those groups to go do that. Now, we use Teams for that. We use SharePoint for that. All of the technology tools underlay that, but it's really the people part of that has really been a big change for us. And that's what we do. That's what IT is supposed to do, is to bring people together to go do that. And I'll say that people get along a lot better now, 18 months later, than they did back then. because as a new guy coming in, only meeting people through Teams, it's like, wow, why did that person just hang up on us? You know, like it's kind of hard to walk out of a conference room when you're all there in person, but in Teams, it's just left. So it was very interesting to see the dynamics of our organization back then compared to today. So.
Okay, that's kind of a neat story about how that's changed culturally too. Jim, how about you? Collaboration, were you guys were not using much of Teams, I think, before the pandemic, or were you all in, or what other tools were you using to kind of keep everybody together?
Yeah, prior to the pandemic, it was all face to face. So we were thrown into the fire, and now Teams is our biggest collaboration tool. We do have pages created within Teams for our various departments. We've started working on migrating that shared data, from an on-premise file server to those individual team pages, and we're able to, rather than just have everybody being able to save to that central repository, now we've got a little bit tighter control on who has access to what. You're a member of this team, you're a member of that team, you can see that data. So that's been a big help. Like Dan had mentioned, the OneDrive has been huge for us, not because it's it's not rocket science, but we've got to store all that information somewhere, and just the ability to have each person have their own file storage space, and a terabyte to boot. I mean, that's quite a bit. We were finding ourselves, adding drives, upgrading SANs to keep up with those file storage demands. And now we can breathe a little bit, because everybody has their own space. And guess what? IT doesn't have to be the bad guy anymore. It's your space. You keep it clean. Oh, you're approaching your limit. I guess you better figure out, what's really important, and start archiving some of it.
A lot of self-service options in that model too, right, Jim?
Absolutely. And the sharing, internally, externally, that's huge. Prior to becoming an Office 365 shop, everything went through email. So attachment upon attachment upon attachment, and mail files were just growing out of control. But now, you've got so many different sharing options of sharing that, just the link. Nobody really understood where that file lived. All they knew is how to get to it. And now you share that link. You could collaborate, multiple people within the same document, build that document out on the fly. Huge time saver.
Right. Ken, you mentioned, you're working on some new initiatives. I think the digital transformation has opened all of our eyes on what we can do, or sometimes I call it the power of possible. You get slightly addicted to making those changes because things are possible that they weren't before, and you build upon that success. And again, a lot of kudos to all of you for making that transformation, especially over the last 18 months. But now that you've kind of got some, call it runway under your feet for this transformation, what do you have coming up, and what's some new initiatives that you can share with us around things that you've learned? And what I've got some ideas on things that we can do, or things that you may already have plans for.
Sure. So our tech task force, our board members, are duly impressed with all of the progress that we've made. but they also see it as just the beginning. So these are guys that are working, they're venture capital, they're with startups, they're on the cutting edge of what's coming to market. And they see, we're just learning to crawl in this regard. Their challenge is, how do we paint a more positive picture to help raise more funding, more investment in IT for solutions like that? So we need a new CRM. We have competing visions of what that CRM should provide us with. It's a huge multi-year project. The question is do we replicate the way we manage our membership program the way it works today, or do we improve upon it? Those are internal debates that we're having today. Our financials are out of date. We just haven't had the time and the people to work on it. It doesn't become a priority. We manage our fleets of 300 trucks and 100 properties on spreadsheets today. How do we get into the electronic vehicle charging solutions world? Where do we put them in our property? It seems like it aligns with our brand. The never-ending quest to micromanage what our customers are complaining to us about. How do we listen directly to the customer to find that? And then we're going to have these continual improvements to what we've already built. Ticketing. How do we go to paperless ticketing or mobile device wallets? How do we blend ticketing with point of sale? How do we make payments easier? It seems like we come up with a new payment method every year. We're hiring a new HR leader, and our HRIS system all needs to be improved. One of the things that I found is that IT has to be perceived as they partner with the business. Historically, what we did, because we were in silos, is IT would go find a cool tool and then go look for a problem to apply it to, as opposed to, let's find our problems that we need to work on and then work with the business to solve them with whatever that solution might be. It's sort of a 180 approach to just bringing a cool technology. And then, as we talked about earlier, the security never ends. How do you be more secure without being overly burdensome? So recently, say in the last 90 days, we've turned on multi-factor authentication to our network. Even though it's all cloud-based, we want to make sure the right people are getting into that. That created another 30 to 60-day tsunami of change management. We also had people personally go overseas, but we secure our network so that people outside that are the United States can't access our network. That creates problems, and usually that's at the executive level. So it's a continual process of improvement. And once we go do these things, there'll be another wave of things out there that we'll need to integrate too. So,
thanks, Ken. Dan, same question to you. What new things have your eyes been open to that you guys are looking at that you're able to share with us?
Yeah, we've got a handful of items that are on the roadmap for the rest of this year, going into next year. Number one is we realized that by changing the way that we house and harvest our data versus just SharePoint folders, and then we attach ourselves through Power BI to really get serious about our database, SQL database, from a secured standpoint. So we started with pumping data in from operating systems, and now it just opens up this opportunity. We've got a level of comfort from our cloud administrators to our IT department, our digital team. Let's go get as much data as we can and start to build out visual platforms. So, our mindset is, we knew SQL databases we were going to really, hone in on it, but now we got a level of comfort. So between now and the end of the year, we got a couple different platforms. We're going to pull data in, a direct connection with APIs from some of our partners and start visualizing. Another big project we have between now and the end of the year, which we're partnering with Redlevel on, is rolling out deployment of Autopilot Intune. And I had made the comment earlier that inventory management of our computers that are being purchased and then deployed to the field it's a huge task. It's an undertaking, and making sure that the imaging is correct. And we have corporate imaging, site level imaging, but just then the back end manage of it, using some tools that we feel that there's more automation that can be in play. It's going to be cleaner, and it's going to be, for us, a better way of deploying things like universal print, for example. So that's on our roadmap between now and the end of the year, is the Autopilot Intune, which we're getting pretty darn close to, thanks to our partnership with Redlevel. And besides that, a lot of companies, I think, Jim had made the comment about a lot of emails and attachments going back and forth. We do the same thing with our owner clients. We have about 75 owner clients that we support. And every Monday there is a flood of outgoing emails with PDF attachments that go out. And that's the way people are comfortable doing business. But what we're now doing, and we've been forced into, is, in a good way, is creating external guest collaboration pages using Teams. So inviting our owners who are outside of our ecosystem into our Teams, creating these platforms, and instead of sending the email with the PDF attachment, all sorts of ways to clog things up in an inbox, we're just pushing all these reports over to the Teams collaboration page. We're building out dashboards. There's interaction. There's file folders. So now we just shoot them a Teams note. Say, hey, your reports are in. Go ahead and take a look. Let us know if you have any questions. And they can see data updated in real time versus waiting till the end of the month. So it's a deployment that we're looking at with all of our 65 plus owner clients. And we got about 20 of them on this page now. Now we just got to continue building on it. But it's something that for sure has changed our mindset a little bit, since the beginning of 2020 to really push for that type of collaboration with our clients.
So Dan, you're certainly going to be busy, and it sounds like our team's going to be busy between now and the end of the year for sure.
We've got a lot on the plate for you guys, that's for sure.
That's good.
Yeah.
Jim, question to you is, what about you guys? What new things are you thinking about? Doors have certainly opened up, and what are your initiatives for this year and next year?
Yeah, well, now that we've kind of settled down a little bit with the pandemic and scrambling to do everything to support that, we've definitely got some projects on the horizon. Like Dan mentioned, Power BI is going to be a big one for us. At any point in time, we've got probably close to 20 years worth of sales history online, and we're analyzing all that through spreadsheet right now, and we just want to make that a little more real time and be able to proactively make decisions rather than react to the data that we're seeing, and make some of those dashboards interactive. We track different KPIs for our production teams. Again, all through spreadsheet. It'd be nice to be able to, put those up on flat screens, throughout the facility, so they can see how they're doing, in real time, not in a morning meeting, to see, what needs to be done for the rest of the week or whatever. Also going to start digging into some of the other tools that the Office 365 package has to offer. We've already scratched the surface a little bit with Power Automate, Power Apps, very powerful. If you need not just a quick and dirty system, but it's so robust on what it offers, and we really want to dig into that a little bit more, and probably combining the Power Apps and the Power BI and everything. Looking at our sales data, it's always been what are the trends? What are the strong sales for us? We're going to focus more on why aren't we getting these sales? Is it due to price? Is it due to quality? Is it due to we just don't have the item available? If we don't have the item available, why is that? Is that something that we can control, or is it supplier controlled? So looking at the front end of that rather than looking at the back end in an after the fact way.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Last question before we get to the Q&A. So we're getting to the end of the session here. Can Can you just, Dan, can you describe your business perspective in 3 words and why those 3 words?
Yeah. The first one is that I've said it a couple times, being nimble. And, as a team, our goal is always to be able to, be flexible and listen to the needs and make those, subtle changes that are necessary, and continuing to be nimble. Don't ever want to be looked at as the team of no. And we checked with the technology department. They just said no. We always want to go at it and say, well, either here's what we can do, or give us a minute, let's do some research and we'll work with you. So nimble is one. For us, it's learning. Everything that we're doing is, a lot of this stuff is new. The why behind what we're doing is new to us. So it's always learning as we're picking things up and we're doing, making some adjustments to how we operate. It's learning, can we apply this somewhere else? Or is there a piece of this that we can put over here? Like Jim had said about Power Automate, it's such a robust tool, or Power Apps, building out applications for things and saying, okay, that worked really well there. Now what? We're learning how this is going to function. Can we deploy this somewhere else and, reduce expenses, or, charge a fee for it? And my last one, is my biggest piece of advice for my team and anybody that, I get an opportunity to work with, is when you see challenges, lean into it. It is really easy to hide. It's easy for people to say, I'll bow out, times are tough. And when things happen that are uncomfortable or out of your control, like a pandemic, the best thing to do is lean into it and, take it for what it is. But there was a lot of people, and it's, unfortunately, a lot of people said, it's not for me. The stress, the pressure, the challenges here, I don't want to do it, I'll bow out. So it's, for a team to be able to constantly look at things and say, let's lean into the challenge and, see what we can do with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Ken, how about you? What 3 words would you use to describe your ongoing business perspective? You're on mute too.
Yep. The 3 words that come to mind, the first one's perpetuity. So the trustees, when they take over a property, we take over a relationship that says we can't resell this to turn it into condos or a strip mall somewhere down the road. We're taking care of this property forever. And perpetuity comes with it uniqueness. Having grown up in the retail business, consumer packaged goods, many of those organizations aren't around anymore. Perpetuity is, you have to be careful. We bought a new archive system recently. Somebody said, will this be around 50 or 70 or 90 years from now? Like, how long is this going to last, kind of thing? So that's different. Guest focused is the second word. Everything we should do should be about the guest. It shouldn't be to make our administration in the back office better or somebody to get home earlier. This is about making the guest happier. And then the third one is educational. So educational, both from the guest's perspective, teaching them about our properties and why we exist, but also from our internal employees and our guests to teach them about new technology solutions and what we can do with them and how life can be better for everybody. Those would be the 3 that come to mind off the top of my head. Nimble is also a 4th one. I like the word nimble. Yes.
Yes. It's been the word of the year for
Yes.
sure. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I would have to say never stop adapting. If you don't embrace the change and the technology that is coming, you're just going to be left behind. And unfortunately, we've seen that in our industry, where we've always done it this way and we're not going to change. That type of attitude, unfortunately, has forced some of those companies out of business. They don't transition well to the next generation. And if you don't have the mindset that we're gonna take this head on, or like Dan said, lean into it, you're just gonna get left behind.
So true. And I'll share, as a business owner of a technology company, I'd say I got two phrases that I really like to say is never stop planning. So real in line with yours, Jim. Because as Dan said earlier, you all have a plan until you get punched in the face. And we all had plans in 2019 that all changed, and we've been changing essentially ever since. And then lastly, empathy is everything. We have to have a lot of understanding about the world that we live in, about how people are within our own companies and how we're working with them in a new way. And we just can never forget that, because it's certainly not changing, and we have to adopt, or we certainly have to adapt and adopt new ways of doing things. So I thank you for that, and I want to thank our panelists for their time today. I understand, Megan, that we have a couple questions before we end our session.
Yep, just a couple that had come in while everybody was discussing. If there are any additional questions, feel free to ask them through the Q&A panel. So first question, trends have been mentioned a few times today. What are your organizations seeing as the next trends of IT? Ken, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. From an organization where historically technology didn't play much of a role, how do we embed technology, sort of like the security answer, without being too burdensome or obtrusive? The challenge that we have is many people use our properties to get away from technology, to disconnect, to turn off the phone, to disconnect from Wi-Fi, whereas other people, they still want to be able to work from the beach and have Wi-Fi on their iPad or things like that. So it's how do we strike that balance so that technology doesn't take over a culture, but it enhances a culture and enhances a guest experience to go do that. So I'd say that's probably our biggest challenge in the next 5 to 10 years, type of thing.
Okay, Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about automation and looking at technology as a tool, not to kill a job, but to improve how the job, how the job can actually be deployed. With our IT department, there are 4 official members that fall under IT support. We've got network administrator, we've got a service technician, we've got our IT director, and then a cloud administrator. And for us, it's looking at how can we keep the team lean, automate processes, not only for our part, from an IT infrastructure, but for the departments around us who may be spending too much time in spreadsheets, trying to build out pivot tables, pulling data from all these different systems. So for us, it's really about how can we step in, help automate a process, and get you back out there and in a position or set you up for success. So you're really spending time on what's driving business, driving revenue, instead of doing a lot of the manual hunting and manual plug and play for a lot of our systems. So I know it's a broad answer, but the automation piece has been so important for us when we look at our roadmaps, is where can we step in, reduce redundancies, take people away from stuff that the machine can do, the computer can do, a script can do, and get them back out there doing things that the machine can't do.
And Jim?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Dan said. Is the automation. If you go back 10 years ago, even, I used to complain at Microsoft constantly. It's like, you guys come out with these tools, but you have to have a PhD to really understand what they're capable of. But now Microsoft has come full circle and have really put some powerful tools in our hands that even the power user, if you will, can really embrace and take advantage of without IT intervention at all. So I see the next trend for us is just getting people familiar with those types of systems, and rather than doing the nuts and bolts work of it, we're going to be more of a sounding board, if you will, for people designing systems to handle their everyday tasks. It may not be a huge, organizational wide application. It may just be for HR or maybe just for finance. But as we get into some of these new tools that Microsoft rolls out and is improving every single quarter, I see us as supporting that and allowing our users to take advantage of what Microsoft is offered.
Okay. And one final question, and let's see if we can each wrap this up in about 30 seconds or less. I know it might be tricky, but Jim mentioned upgrading firewalls and internet service providers. What other infrastructure or device projects have to be addressed to ensure team members can access all the cloud-based systems that have become so important? Jim, why don't you start with that one?
Sure. We're just scratching the surface with this right now, but we've got those basic infrastructure pieces in place. But Microsoft makes it very easy to roll this out and have the security both inside and outside, the network. Intune is a huge one. Just being able to have all your devices managed under one umbrella and to be able to create just not only out of the box rules, but maybe you have some specific instance that you need to address. Intune is just huge, and being able to create those access rules. The multi-factor authentication is a huge one. Just simple things like not being able to log in Michigan, and then 15 minutes later somebody's trying to log in from California. Well, hey, that's not possible. So we're gonna flag this and run people through the MFA process. Yeah, Microsoft has got some amazing tools there to help manage that.
Okay, Ken, what about you?
I know from as Jim touched on, multi-factor authentication helps sort of the front door to get everybody in. Every organization I've worked at, it seems that email is the wide open front door for people to click on the wrong thing, give their password up, things like that. So phishing tools, education around phishing tools, repeated testing around phishing tools. The more you do it, the better. And the more people get used to it, the more cautious they are around that. So that's a big thing. And then I really think that it seems that we have so many vendors that play in the security space. There is no one size fits all for any organization. You have to pick and choose which ones you want and how many you want. I forget the name of the vendor that Kaseya had a wide open front door that got in earlier this summer, which was very bad to anybody who was a Kaseya customer. How many vendors are you going to have out there? Can you do vendor rationalization to create a more secure environment for you? So those would be three I could think of.
Okay, and Dan?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off some of these comments. We'll try not to be redundant, but I think it's a great point Ken brings up is there's a lot of providers out there, partners that you can be considered the experts, and spend your time, do your due diligence, find the right fit for you, get comfortable with them, what the product offers. So besides the physical infrastructure that we looked at, which is firewall upgrades, we partner with Meraki, and we have a trust with Meraki. We love using the Meraki Cisco devices. So there's a management component on the back end for our network administrator to be able to see ins and outs and where who is accessing which devices, and having that dashboarding control has been extremely powerful. From a cloud administrator standpoint, You know, a lot of companies are leaning towards iPad deployment and, you know, making sure that whether it's iPads or iPhones or smartphone devices out there in the field can be used. You know, the advice there is obviously, you know, get with a partner that's going to do some of your MDM management. And, you know, we use AirWatch for all of our MDM. It allows us to have full control of when somebody logs into that device, the applications are pre-populated. We can change profiles on the fly. Also allows us to know when they've accessed, when they've logged in, are they lost, and you know, who's using them, for us to, you know, kind of push a little bit, say, hey, that iPad hasn't been touched in, you know, 4 months. Should we shut off the data plan for it? Do we need to have it sent back in? Is it not working? Is it lost or stolen? So just having some of those insights on top of everything else that the guys had already mentioned. You know, universal print is a big one for us, and getting the Intune autopilot set up with universal print. We partnered with PaperCut to make sure that when one of our executives goes from office to office to office, there's a direct connection to that printer without a ticket getting put in and some delay in that response time. So those are just, you know, a handful of the other items on top of what they'd already mentioned that, you know, from a physical aspect, but also just finding the right partners that are going to help you, you know, accomplish whatever those goals might be.
Okay, great. Thank you for all of that. Next up, we would love to see you again this afternoon. In about 20 minutes, we will kick off our session on the reality of a virtual desktop. Then we'll go into zero trust security and modern work collaboration. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you.